Hi, friends. I'm Lauren.
And I'm Katie, and welcome to Okay, but did you know? Pedantic Book Club. Normally, we're a podcast where we talk about the TV and media that we love with a friend who's never seen it before. But once a quarter, we stop and discuss a book with our book club members on Patreon about a book that has either been adapted into a series or film or a retelling.
This quarter, our pick was Jurassic Park by Michael Crichton. This book was first published in 1990 by Alfred A. Knopf Publishing. I do not think I'm pronouncing that correctly.
I think it's just Knopf, but I never know.
But here's the thing. I watched the TED Talk of the guy that did the cover art for Jurassic Park.
Okay. Oh, you did? That's awesome.
I did. It's a really, really cool TED Talk on just graphic design and like how you can show a story with just the cover design. It's really cool.
Oh, we'll definitely put that in the show notes.
Yes, definitely. He definitely pronounced the K. I can't remember if he pronounced the P. So that's why I'm unsure if I'm pronouncing this publisher correctly. The book was followed by the sequel, The Lost World, and the Jurassic Park universe was subsequently adapted into 2 movie franchises and also TV shows. The original franchise involved 3 movies that were released between 1991 and 2001. And the second franchise, which is the Jurassic World franchise, there was an additional 3 movies that was released between 2015 and 2022.
We always start off with a synopsis with everything else that we do. So I'm going to give us just a little Katie written synopsis of this. This is not like actually a professional blurb. So bear with me. It's the 90s and dinosaurs roam the earth once more. John Hammond, an eccentric rich man, funds the creation of Jurassic Park. Jurassic Park is a theme park on an island called Isla Nublar, and Hammond needs to prove it is safe. He invites some paleontologists and his grandchildren to the theme park, hoping it will prove to everyone just how safe it is. Unbeknownst to him, someone is trying to steal from him, and chaos ensues on Isla Nublar.
So going forward, this is going to be your spoiler warning for Jurassic Park, the book, and the movie. So if you have not seen the movie and have not read the book and would like to do either, we do invite you to go complete those first before coming back, because we will be talking about both of them in their entirety. Because how else are we going to... We're not a spoiler-free podcast.
Yeah, we're not spoiler-free.
When it comes to the main series, I try to keep things spoiler-free for you, but, I also do so while hinting at things for people that know what I'm talking about. So,
I kind of do the same, too. It's definitely much of a spoiler up until what you've seen. We don't like to spoil anything that's coming up if we know about it, because the entire point of our original podcast is that this is the first time we've ever done this, the first time we've ever watched it, which is ironic since this is my second reread of Jurassic Park. It is Lauren's first.
It was my very first time.
During this that Lauren had only watched the movie once, which hurt just a little bit to hear for myself.
I had seen it a very, very long time ago. I did rewatch it immediately after finishing the book.
Because you had to. There's something about it. You have to watch after.
I finished the book, and this was my very first time reading it, so I finished the book later that evening. I'm like, I'm just going to watch it, because, it was on Netflix at the time. I don't know what service it's on these days. But I was like, it's right there. I have to. So I'm just like, let's just while the comparisons are fresh, let's just do it right now.
Because then the whole time, I did the same exact thing, but I watched almost all 6, except for the last one, because at the time, Dominion was not on any streaming platform, and I was not about to spend money on it.
That's fair.
Because I binged the original trilogy all in one weekend after I finished reading. I couldn't help it.
That's fair.
They were better than I remembered. I know a lot of people kind of didn't like them, but I'll speak more on movies later. But I did enjoy my little binge of all of the Jurassic Park stuff, because there's also the TV show that they've made for kids, Camp Cretaceous. We are recording this May 13th on May 24th. The next series for that comes out, and it's way further into the future. The kids that are in it are grown, and it's called Jurassic World Chaos Theory.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually excited for that, because Chaos Theory just is a wonderful portion of this series.
Yes, it is.
But we wanted to start off with just our book notes. I kind of organized mine with prologue and then all the different iterations.
Yeah, mine are split up amongst the different iterations. My notes, they're my chaos notes is what we're calling them these days.
Yeah.
A lot of mine it is me commentating on the book and as I'm reading it. And I have them split up between each iteration as well.
Yeah, because I remember Okay, so from the prologue, I wrote that I only had one thing. It was just realizing raptors probably weren't common knowledge before Jurassic Park was released.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm having to remind myself that because it was written and released 30 years ago, Jurassic Park has always been a part of our lives.
Yeah, exactly.
Always. So, like, raptors probably were not actually as well known before the 90s because not everybody's a paleontologist.
Yeah, not outside of paleontologists. Not everyone would know exactly unless you've been to certain. I don't really know what museums had what they'd found at that point. I don't know I should have looked up what was at like the Museum of Natural History from the city. Like I don't know how long that exhibit has existed. My very first note, and this is just gonna be a me thing. On page 2, when they mentioned someone got out of a helicopter wearing a Mets baseball cap, I just wrote, "Boo." I'm not a Mets fan.
You don't say.
You know, in New York, there are 2 types of baseball fans: Yankee fans and masochists.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Mm-hmm.
See, because like though like where I'm from, being a Braves fans, like we're not the biggest fans of the Yankees.
Yeah.
So because of rivalries and everything, so I always thought that was funny.
That's totally fair.
Anything from the first iteration, because like if you haven't read the book, there's 7 iterations is what they call them within this book. There's not parts, and it's actually kind of cool because you get to see the different art.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was like supposed to be, I guess, part of the computer system, like all the symbols coming together. It was the security, wasn't it?
I think it was meant to be like Malcolm's like the chaos theory math things that he creates.
I love that I open on on actual data.
If you haven't read the book in physical, it has graphs and charts all over the place, which my dad, a nerd heart, very much loved. But at some point, they mention like the shape of like I guess like the representations of chaos theory that Malcolm comes up with. That's what I think that's what they're meant to be. Symbols. It's the different iterations it's the different iterations as they get more complex.
Which makes sense. Okay, that makes more sense to me now. See, I didn't realize that because each one too has like a quote from Ian Malcolm under it.
Mm-hmm.
Every single one does, and it's so cool how they do it. My little beat up copy.
Yeah,
but I loved that.
Yeah, as like the first iteration was going, I was getting I wrote down, I'm getting the horror connections. Like this is because like I guess it's more specifically sci-fi, but it definitely has like monster horror elements to it.
Yeah, because the raptors and the babies. And, or not the raptors. It was the compies.
Yes, the procompsognathids.
That was impressive.
Here's the thing. This is the joke amongst the reading community. Is like you have the people that read physically that know how everything is spelled. You have the people who listen to the audiobooks who know how everything is pronounced. Then you have me who does both at the same time. So I know how everything is spelled and how everything is pronounced.
I was about to say, there was no way. I was doing the ba-da-ba-da-ba-da when reading a lot of these dinosaur names because I had no idea.
Yeah, the compies. I wrote down at the very end of the iteration, like, why are the dinos eating babies?
They're hungry.
I guess it gets explained that like they go like they're scavengers. Those like they assume that the sleeping babies are dead. I guess
they assume that because there's less movement that they're more likely to be closer to death. Because they'll also go out. If I remember correctly, they'll also go after things that are almost dead. So like they're still kind of living.
Yeah.
Which I know we'll get to talk about later.
Yeah.
For one character.
Mm-hmm.
And I did right at the end of the first iteration too. Of course, it's a mom who realized it was a dinosaur. Like she's the one that like
I wrote that too. It was like all the scientists cannot figure out what this is. The mom walks in. Oh, who drew the dinosaur? Like immediately.
Exactly. I wrote for the second iteration. I just wrote, I think it's clear John Hammond is evading the law. I was like, something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that.
Is his thing like when he's telling them like, no, you don't need your passports and all this. It's all just for the weekend. Immortal last words. I wrote like every couple of times. I'm like immortal last words, just for the weekend. It's fine.
I wrote that Book Hammond is an evil man when he started going into some consumer biologicals, which is a whole nother level of what this book does. Is talking about that. Mm-hmm. Like, yes, let's sell. Like, I mean, we have pets. Mm-hmm. Pets are a thing, but when you start getting into like exotic animals, it gets really weird. Because I would count a dinosaur as an exotic animal. If it can kill you, maybe don't keep it as a pet. Yeah,
most likely. And to be fair, that doesn't stop people from like trying to have jaguars and lions as pets.
Yeah, so that was definitely. What is it that I called him at one point? Hammond. I
mean, I call him Evil Walt Disney.
I called him Disney Dino Daddy.
Oh yeah, Disney Dino Daddy. Yeah,
that's what I called him. I remember texting you, and I'm like, evil Disney Dino Daddy.
Yep, that's Hammond. Absolutely.
And he's so different from the movie, but that's for later. That we'll definitely get to both rant about that, I'm sure.
Oh, absolutely.
I really loved the portion though of like when they were talking about how everything was automated, the security system, there's no way that it could fail, all these different things. And I'm like, do you want human error and like a simple replacement for that human error? Or do you want computer malfunction that only one person can fix?
Apparently they opted for computer malfunction that only one person can fix because that's the entire crux of the story.
It's the entire crux, but like if you look at any other situation, I'm like, I would rather just human error. It doesn't that happen like less? Because like I can think of a lot of times that I have computer malfunctions.
Well, that's like the issue with like even currently with like the increased focus on automation is when you're creating more and more automated systems. Ultimately, what you're ending up with is like I can tell you like at work recently, a system went down that no one knew that they had started fixing something. So all of a sudden, like, can I just not do my job? Like, what's going on here? What? And so I had to message my manager, and he's like, "Oh, they're doing this. It'll be good tomorrow. Like, can you wait?" I'm like, "Oh no, that's fine." But it's like our system broke down because there wasn't communication about this thing that is being automated to work better. And I'm like, okay, yeah, tell me when that happens so I can stop doing something.
Yeah, like there's too many malfunctions.
There's too many malfunctions. But I kept writing this over and over again. I did highlight a line specifically when they say on page 62, at least of my copy. I put the page numbers in my notes also.
Yeah, I don't have page numbers because I have like a really, really old mass market. Mine, like, it's super old.
I have the 25th anniversary edition. So the version I have is probably what people would find in a bookstore these days.
I have a 35th printing.
Okay.
From 1993. Mine is a 35th printing. Oh, it apparently was really
that's
popular.
That got printed really quickly. But the point I was saying was like a lot of the foreshadowing. I couldn't tell if it felt heavy-handed or if I just knew it was going to happen. Because the line that I singled out for this one was, "Pound for pound, a velociraptor was the most rapacious dinosaur that ever lived." Like, and they kept bringing up about velociraptors over and over and over again, which would make sense if people don't have a concept of what a velociraptor is and can do. Like, we've grown up with them, and because this book came out before both of us were alive. So velociraptors have been a part of the dinosaur lexicon for a very long time, in our case. So I can't tell if the foreshadowing of like, oh, this is automated, it's all perfectly safe, the dinosaurs are all perfectly encapsulated in their things, but nothing can go wrong. But also these velociraptors are like kind of awful and terrifying and will attack you for no reason.
And there's lots of them.
And there's plenty of them. I don't know why we have this many of them at all. Or even the thing about like when they were having the conversation about like that they're too fast, or like that people can't like they can't enjoy the spectacle because they opted to make them more realistic. And Wu was like, we need to engineer them so that they can be entertainment pieces. He's like, but they wouldn't be real. And I'm like, there's so much foreshadowing here that I'm like, I mean, I know it all goes to hell. That's kind of the point of the book.
And it has the discussion too of like what is created. Those dinosaurs aren't even real dinosaurs in that way either, though, because of the changed DNA using the frog and the other types of DNA within these dinosaurs. They're still not even real dinosaurs.
Yeah. Because they had to use other DNA to fill in the gaps of the genetic makeup, because they still didn't get, I guess if you haven't seen the book or the movie, they get the DNA out of fossilized mosquitoes that have dinosaur blood in them that were trapped in amber, which is fossilized tree sap. That's how they get the DNA, but they're broken, so they can't make them correctly. But also part of all of this was they made them all female so that they couldn't reproduce. And then they still use the genetic makeup of a species that could randomly change its biological sex if it needed to.
In the words of Ian Malcolm, life finds a way.
Life finds a way. So, you kind of can't expect these things to not work out the way they're supposed to in nature. Unless they're made out of metal parts, unless you're making animatronic dinosaurs, you can't expect them to not act like wild animals.
Exactly.
Because that's what they are.
Which is a huge part, of course, of the book.
Yes, exactly.
So what did you write down for anything for fun for the third iteration?
So this was from the very beginning when they first get there. I think it was Grant that says this on page 93. I want to lift up their toe pads and inspect their claws and feel their skin and open their jaws and have a look at their teeth. Is giving, it's an entire palace made of ice. Ice is my life.
I mean, I did like that we got to see a baby velociraptor though.
Yeah.
Because with the movies, you don't get to see a baby one until we get to the newer movies with the guy that is played by Chris Pratt.
Yeah.
When he's training them and like in the videos and stuff. Mm-hmm. I think that's in the second of that trilogy.
Oh yeah.
Because it's so funny. We get completely terrified, really, in the first, like the books and the first set of movies of velociraptors, and they're like, wait, no, let's make you love them. In the second set of movies,
let's show you exactly how well, like we can make them lovable characters. They'll save the day. I'm like,
as one of my Funko Pops somewhere around here. We have Blue.
Okay,
the big one. We had like right next to Bowser. I have a big Blue.
Nice.
I love Blue. I love her, but she's deadly.
Yeah, just a little bit. Most of my notes are from third iteration because that's pretty much when they first get there and when the T-Rex attack is. Like, that's where like a bulk of my notes are. So I should just say that.
That's where the bulk of the movie came from.
Yeah, that's true.
I wrote in that, though, that I know gender is a social construct. Mm-hmm. But they just explained this, that all the dinosaurs are female. But then all the men keep calling the dinosaurs he and him. And I'm like, no, they are strong, powerful women. Give them their credit.
Well, I wrote that like when the T-Rex shows up, someone says he's here, and I think Malcolm says she, and I'm like, honestly, that's an important distinction because I think in the movie is it the movie where they say that like they still use she for all of them except for the T-Rexes, they call them he for no particular reason.
I remember a lot of she, I think, but maybe the T-Rex they said he.
I think in the movie they make a point of saying that they still use he, him for the T-Rex because that's what people would expect.
I know in the second trilogy, our newer ones, they very much stick to a lot of the making sure they're saying she.
Yeah.
Because of course, Pratt's character is always talking to Blue, and it's girl and her and she and all that. But at least they understood how dangerous the creatures were.
Yes, this is true. Well, some of them,
not all.
Not all.
The raptors getting on the boat.
Yeah,
I wanted that in like so much more than I realized.
Yeah.
Because it adds into the horror aspect of like, okay, you're saying all of this is contained, and they are literally going to the mainland. Yeah,
they are on their way. Yeah, like again, I wrote down that they can only live here in Jurassic Park. Immortal last words.
That's the theme.
There's a theme here. Yet a moose was almost as skillful with its snout as an elephant with its trunk. To be fair, moose are terrifying.
They're humongous.
They're so big.
They're so big, and they're really smart, and they do whatever the hell they want, and you just stay out of the way.
Yep, exactly.
You said you had a lot of third iteration?
I do. So as continuing on, when they're talking about the park and everything, he's listing off things that they need to do for the park. So you have ride maintenance, queue control, transportation, food handling, and living accommodations, trash disposal, and security. And I put next to it, also all important things in Roller Coaster Tycoon.
Oh my goodness. It's a theme park. We just recorded a whole episode about theme parks.
I mean, yes, we do.
What's wrong with us?
But still, I stand by. They very much are. Oh, this was something. No, I'm jumping off. I'm not even going in order anymore. I'm not going backwards.
No, you're fine.
But the line. So I wonder, have they learned somewhere along the line that humans are easy to kill? Because this was the comment on that, like a lot of wild animals, if they're bred in captivity or even in the wild and they haven't experienced humans, need to be taught that humans are someone not only that is killable but that is worth killing. Like, so it begs the question of, if these things are these are lab grown dinosaurs.
Yep.
What did they do to them to make them kill on sight is my question. Because like, that's given the fact that the dinosaurs escape and the T-Rex is really coming after them the entire time. The velociraptors are really coming after them the entire time. And obviously we don't see this part of it, but it's just, what did they do to these dinosaurs to make them this voracious at them is really my question.
I know I'm bringing the movie back into it, but that's why I liked the part in the movie when they feed the velociraptors, where Alan is like, that's the only thing they know that feeds them. You feed them with a crane,
Yeah.
No human interaction. That's all they know. That's all they know. And I'm like, you can't raise them that way. And it's just, it's so interesting.
So much.
I love
this.
I love it.
This is my data nerd brain. When despite the fact that I loved the graphs all over the place with it, just that's me. I love that data nerd stuff. But when Hammond is complaining that our first visitors are going through it all like accountants just looking for problems, I'm like, that's the point of quality assurance testing. That's the kind of quality assurance testing you want. You want someone to find the problems so you can fix them before you bring in other stakeholders. You get that, right?
Apparently not.
This is why I kept calling him Evil Walt Disney. He's like, I want them to find the wonder. I'm like, how much you let them find the parts that are deadly?
Oh, no, he doesn't care if they're deadly because that makes them authentic.
Just saying. And that's true. It makes them authentic. This is my last of the funny notes for the third iteration. You'll understand. You'll understand what I'm saying here. When Nedry is doing whatever he is with the security system, like right before it all goes down, and someone picks up the phone, and he yells, "Hang that up! You'll screw up the data stream." And he goes, "You've taken all the phone lines, even the internal ones." Readers under 25 won't understand what they're talking about.
Oh, I didn't think about that.
Like the fact of like
they don't know the horror of dial-up.
No, they don't. So this man is using dial-up to power the security and computer system of this entire giant island-sized theme park.
I told you it was a horror book.
The horrors of dial-up.
That noise still haunts me to this day, though. The dumb noise.
I was watching Young Sheldon today because I'm trying to get caught up.
Oh, us too.
I'm still at the beginning of season 6, but it's an episode where Sheldon is trying to look up something online and he mentions the dial-up tone and he goes, "I still miss that tone sometimes."
No, I don't miss it. It haunts me in my dreams.
No,
because now it's all I can hear in my head. Now that we've said it, I just it's all I hear now. And no.
Little did you know, this was not just the horror of letting dinosaurs roam the earth. It is, in fact, the horror of phone line-based internet.
But, like, trusting your entire system for holding T-Rexes and Velociraptors and tons of dinosaurs with dial-up.
Like, honestly, we've already gone so far into the fantasy aspect of this sci-fi that we have dinosaurs roaming the earth. Why did he root this in reality? Why didn't he just create some kind of mythical cable-based internet, is my question.
Because this is it's a horror book. Yeah. That's where I come with that one. It's like it truly is scary. Like because internet wasn't like, I think he watched internet rise as he wrote this technically because it took him a very long time to finish this book.
Yeah.
So maybe that for him was science fiction.
Maybe.
Because it had really just kicked off.
Sorry, I have one more note from this iteration because this will play into other comments that I have. This was the first time that I really noted it. Was Lex's line when they're playing baseball when they got stuck, and I'm like, what is the point of having one of your kids be a girl if you're going to make her try so hard to be a boy? And then throughout the rest of the book, I keep commenting, pick a characterization. He put every single childlike facet you could put on this one kid. And that's one thing I'll talk about later about changing Lex to being the older sibling. Yeah. I think it works better that way. I do too. We'll talk about that later. But it's like, this is the start of my pick a fucking characterization for this child, please. Please. I beg of you. I will say, while I really enjoy this book, it's one I want more people to read because of just how interesting it is. And I say that by having Ian Malcolm as like my favorite character through it, because the whole time he's just like telling you, "Hi, I was right," telling you I'm right. Why the fuck did I put myself in this situation? But I told you I was right. Yep. He's an ass, but he's right. He's an ass, but he's right. But he just, Crichton in this book, because I have not read his other works. I have some of his other books. He's not the best at writing women. Yeah, I gathered. I was not a fan of the women in the book. I love the women in the book. I don't like how they were written. Yeah. Well, Ellie had a moment where someone says to her, "You're a woman." She goes, "Yes, that tends to happen." Yeah. It killed me. So fourth iteration is where we get to Nedry's death. Far more graphic death in the book than the movie, I will say. I loved that scene. I was like, because he got what he deserved. Oh, absolutely. I wrote down, "You doomed them all. You deserve this." Yeah.
But man, that was rough. Like reading that, how did you feel reading? Like this is where you definitely got the like Katie's making me read a horror book.
Yeah, no, it was definitely like I was like because it's so detailed about like they where it sprays it's the Dilophosaurus, I think it's
Dilophosaurus, yes.
Yeah, it's where it sprays the acid first, and then it blinds him on purpose so that he can't go anywhere, and then like it's like I'm like in my head I'm just like imagining his flesh just rotting off his body. Mm-hmm. Like in the movie, at least, like the movie they show him get sprayed with the acid, and then you see the Dilophosaurus in the car, and that's the end of it.
And then like the car shakes as it's
and you hear it
screaming. That's as much as they show you. It's scary if you're a kid.
Yeah.
Unless you're my child, but still. No, my daughter watched the first Jurassic Park movie when she was about 7. She insisted on it because she was such a fan of dinosaurs. She still loves them.
Okay.
The scene where the T-Rex, like the first scary scene of the T, like which is pretty much the T-Rex eating the guy on the toilet.
Yeah.
She giggled the whole time.
I can see that.
My only other note from 4th iteration is I wrote down the passage. For me, it was page 247 but like I said, I've got a really old mass market, but it's within the 4th iteration. And it just, and it says, living system, Arnold says, are not like mechanical systems. Living systems are never in equilibrium. They are inherently unstable. They may seem stable, but they're not. Everything is moving and changing. In a sense, everything is on the edge of collapse. And all I could think is, yes, Ian Malcolm has been saying this the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
But it's Arnold who's like, yeah, no, this is how this is. And I'm just like, oh my God, you guys are killing me. Y'all keep saying it and no one's thinking, maybe we need to get the hell off this. Like, maybe we shouldn't. Not everything's okay.
Yeah.
Things are not okay.
Maybe we shouldn't be here is really, like, I think the very beginning of this, I think it's after when we think Malcolm is dead before we find out that he's not dead. I was like, what is this? Kill off all your characters day?
I mean, it's a horror book.
I mean, yes, I'm aware of this. Now, at the time, I figured it out.
At the time,
I was getting there. But
we're killing everybody.
Well, you'll appreciate this when it describes the T-Rex. Massive head and jaws. He saw the smaller, muscular forelimb. I have a big head and little arms, and I'm not sure how well thought out this plan was.
There's Jurassic Park in one sentence.
Literally, I have a big head and little arms. I don't know how well thought out this plan was. Exactly that. So there you go. With Meet the Robinsons, figured it out. The time that I actually wrote down evil Walt Disney, when he says, "The children of the world love dinosaurs, and the children are going to delight in this place. Their little faces will shine with the joy of finally seeing these wonderful animals." Evil Walt Disney. Mm-hmm. Because that's who he is at this point.
He really is.
Mm-hmm. And it's just that's a continuing theme. And again, later on in the iteration with Lex going on the other end of the spectrum after like with the whole thing with the baseball the whole time in the last iteration, he goes so far to the other end of the spectrum with infantilizing her, and I'm just like, I understand. She is a little girl. That is a natural response for her to have. Mm-hmm. And even kids that put on kind of that tomboyish nature, that may be their reaction to these kinds of things, but it just feels like he couldn't figure out how to write the little girl, so he just wrote everything.
Yeah. For 5th iteration, I for the next 3, I only wrote one thing each, because I know we both had this happen. You reach a certain point of the book. Mm-hmm. I stopped tabbing as much. I stopped annotating as much. I started taking less notes because I couldn't put it down.
Yeah.
You reach a point in this book that happens. I
have nothing written down for the last 2 iterations. My notes stopped at the 5th iteration because I was just reading
because it's so good.
Because the 7th iteration is pretty much the epilogue, but the 6th iteration is pretty much just like, let's get the fuck off this island.
Mm-hmm. And oh my God, are we going to be able to like keep velociraptors from getting the mainland?
Yeah, exactly. Like this the 5th iteration continued on with my thing about Lex's characterization, because I don't remember the context of this, but at some point Lex says Tim's very interested in sex. I'm like, pick a characterization. You have a small girl character who has been a tomboy, a scared little girl, and now you're sexualizing her?
It's a little weird.
It's a little strange. Like, I just need you to pick one. And that was a going theme throughout the entirety of the book for me. And then this was my last poignant note, and the rest, I haven't said everything I've written down because, quite frankly, they're not all gems. But But like I wrote down, I think it was discovery is always a rape of the natural world, which is exactly it. Because so much of this is just because like what is the limitation on science, on the scientific exploration? Mm-hmm. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you
should.
Like they never, like none of the scientists in the situation stopped and thought, just because we can bring back dinosaurs, like what is the implication to bring back something that hasn't lived on this planet for millions of years?
Yeah.
And they're destroying what is now the natural world as the world has evolved and changed and grown. They've done exactly that. They've wholly altered the natural world and almost the entirety of the natural world by the velociraptors getting off onto the mainland. So
apparently that goes into like book 2.
Yeah, I think Lost. Yeah, they think Lost World is there's an island where a bunch of them have all created a new dinosaur colony or something.
I'll explain that one.
Okay.
So I only wrote one thing each for the last 3 iterations. So 5th, I just wrote that I wish there were more pterodactyls in the movie, but they saved that for the second movie. And then 6th iteration, I just wrote, well, that was a lot. Because it really is. That's when everything's kind of coming to fruition. Everybody's trying to get back together to be able to get off. They're trying to keep the raptors from the mainland, try to get communications back up. People start dying. It all starts getting a little crazy there.
Yep.
More so than it already has.
Everyone dies. The end.
Everyone dies. And then 7th iteration, I only wrote one thing, and that was the quote, "You egomaniacal idiot," Malcolm said in fury about Hammond. And I just wrote, absolutely accurate of Disney Dino Daddy.
Exactly. I will say I didn't write this down, but I was very, very happy with Hammond dying and just being eaten by the compies, because like it's very much of like the hoist with your own petard kind of thing. Like he was so adamant that this was safe and all well and good, and he hurts himself and he can't get back to like the safety of the enclosure in time, and his creation destroys him, and I prefer that as his ending, quite frankly.
I do too. Which I do love that you were like the compies, do they just, if they stop moving as much, and then that's how he dies, is the compies, and
because he can't move,
he can't get up, and move around.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, it was that. I like this book. There are problems within it, of course, but I look at book. I can't help it if it's something that's 1990, 1991 written. Like it's gonna have some shit in it that we're like, I don't like that.
No, exactly.
It's going to.
Yeah, I wrote as a generalized note for the book when I was done reading. I wrote down that it was surprisingly readable. And this was more of, I think it's my own preconceived notion that a sci-fi book from the 90s would be very academic. Because I would say most books that I've read...
As it's filled with data.
But to be fair, it's very academic. It's academic in a way that, like, I think, even if you're not me, people have loved this book for years, clearly, for decades.
It's got a whole fandom.
Because, like, a lot of the books that I've read that were written 90s and earlier were books written that I had to read in school. So those were always a little harder to read to begin with. So I think it's, or maybe I'm just smarter than I think I am. I have no idea. But I feel like it's this idea that older books tend to have a more higher brow language than they do today. And quite frankly, even though this is a little heavy on the science, I don't think this is, it like I said, it's surprisingly readable in that I would, other than the dial-up, like if you told me this book was written in the last 15 years, I would believe you.
Yeah. And I can say with rereadability, because there really is a thing of saying of like if you can actually reread a book you've read before, how much you will enjoy it. I picked up on so much more the second time around than I did the first. So much more. So it's also one of those ones that you can keep reading over and over but like every so often and still find more in it that you're just like, oh my God, how did I not see that before? It's so much fun. It's just a wild ride. Even the second, like I said, this was the second time I read it, and at one point I couldn't put it down again. So
that's good.
Oh man.
So, and we talked about rating wise. Like, do you want to do like a star rating kind of thing for this? So, what was your star rating?
Yeah, I did a star rating. So I originally read this in September of 2022, and I gave it 5 stars at the time.
Okay.
I had just gotten back into reading because I grew up reading and loving reading.
Yeah.
Got back into reading the summer of 2021. So where I'm at now in 2024 is very different from 2022. So on my reread, I actually gave it 4.5 stars instead.
Okay.
I've grown as a reader and am far more critical of media than I was 2 years ago. But I say that still giving it 4.5. Mm-hmm. The sexism, like you said, within the book was really hard to really look past. Mm-hmm. I love Ellie. I think she's a phenomenal character. You said like you said about the little girl. Maybe don't write her like that either. Like it was really weird.
Yeah.
So that's definitely where it lost points, but it held up still with everything else within the book.
Oh, absolutely. So I like to get stupidly complicated with my my numbers for my books, because what I do in addition to a number rating is I give a rating based off of vibes, and I have a couple different like labels that equate the different star ranges. So for like the vibe, I gave it a really interesting, which is in my 4-star range. It is an interesting read. I sped through, like, for a book that is so far out of my comfort zone. I do not read horror very often. It takes, like, I've read this and like a gothic horror novel, and those would be the only 2 horror novels I've read in a very, very long time. But I gave this a 4.357, which is very specific. So it's not quite a 4.5.
I was going to say, that's very specific.
It's very specific. I tend to go into the 3 decimal places just for my books because I like to. I can't explain why. It's like it's like a very middle, like low middle 4-star range. It was a really great read. I sped through it in about a week. Like,
it's
truthfully,
over 4 stars. I'm happy.
It's over 4 stars. It was a really enjoyable reading experience. The audiobook was really good, which you weirdly can't seem to find in English anywhere if you don't pay for it. I do think it is on YouTube. I ended up just getting it from Audible because that's what I had access to. And it's one of those times of, like, I would say, check your local library, check all of this. But both of our library systems, and I have library cards from different library systems in various states, no one had it in English.
No. Yeah, same.
And it's not an Audible original, so there's no reason why it can only be found on Audible. I have no idea why.
It was really weird because I can only find it in German.
Yeah, that's the only one had it in. So part of the book club, if we did mention this earlier, is we're sharing this with our patrons over on Patreon. So the link is in the show notes if you do want to join us. It's about $1 a month. And they get to help us pick the books every quarter. They get to submit questions to us. We have a whole bunch of other, like, Patreon exclusive content there. But specifically for the book club, they get to submit questions and comments for us. So our very first question comes from our patron, Sammy, who's also a friend of ours. And they have asked us, did you watch the movie again before or after reading the book? And what were the big differences between the adaptation and the novel?
So, of course, I think we both said that we both watched after.
Yes.
And, oh, man, there were actually a lot of big differences.
There really are. I mean, at the end of the day, the movie is, I would say, the second half of the book.
Yeah, it really is. You kind of take out all the, like, nearby island things going on.
They take out all of, like, they take out most of, like, I would say, like, the stakes of these. The dinosaurs have already left the island.
Yeah.
They get rid of that aspect of it.
Like, that parts are, like, it's only compies at this point that they know of.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's why maybe it doesn't feel as bad. It's the fear of the raptors, I think, throughout the rest of the book, of them getting off, that is so much more exorbitant.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the big difference of just how big of a character the velociraptors actually are.
Yeah.
They are really scary. That is a pretty big part of the movie, but it's still even just mainly the back half of the movie, too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Throughout the book, I feel like the raptors are a constant of, like, these guys are really dangerous. This is how we make them. Oh, there's actually, like, over 30 of them on the island. Oh, no, there's even more than that. They're breeding all over the place. Like, because then they go into the ground and find their nest. Mm-hmm. There's so many velociraptors. It's actually terrifying.
Yep.
How they got that close to them without being seen, too. Well,
because that was another thing in my comment before of, like, what did they do to them to make them understand that humans need to be killed on sight? The ones that were in that nest may not have had any interaction with humans.
Exactly.
That was my first thought, is they don't perceive these beings as a threat. They have no idea what they are, so they're just going to ignore them. Versus the ones that are in the enclosure, that are in captivity, those are the ones that know that humans...
Something was going on.
Humans need to be attacked. Like, they are vital. Getting rid of them is vital to our survival, kind of thing.
And being caged alone could do that. These people are keeping us caged. Why won't they let us free? They're wild animals, hence the wild.
Exactly. Ugh. So I say watching the movie immediately after finishing the book definitely was, I think, a benefit to my, like, let's compare all of this right now. Because I think I was saying to you, I prefer the complete lack of romantic tension between Grant and Ellie in the book to the movie. Like it's a fun dynamic. Like the two of them, like the two actors play really well off each other. It's Laura Dern. What is the man who plays Grant?
Sam
Neill.
Sam Neill. Thank you.
Yeah. So it's the two. So like the two of them play off each other. Name. I know the two of them play off each other really well. I think that works. And it's a natural dynamic, I think, to have. Although to be fair, he is a few years older than her, so
she still looked older than I would have expected her actual character to look.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was just because it was the 90s or what. She did at least look older than a graduate student, which helped because I think that's what made it weird in the book, of me being grateful that there wasn't really anything going on there, because he was so much older and she was a grad student.
Well, also, it's you still have also the power dynamic of, regardless of how old they are meant to be, he is still the supervisor to her graduate studies project. Yeah. There's a dynamic there that just shouldn't be romantic ever. In my opinion.
No, that should not be a thing.
So I did prefer that. And another big change that I saw, that I was saying before, that I think works into their benefit, is flipping the ages, or at least the dynamic between Tim and Lex, by making Lex the older sibling in the situation, so that she can kind of, the annoyed by her brother thing still works that way, but they gave her a little more agency. They made her the computer whiz versus him. Towards the very end, she's the one that figured out everything. But it makes the broader range of characterization. And to be fair, I think they did it even better. She's just better written, I think, in the movie than she is in the book. Because I think and Michael Crichton did work, he co-wrote the screenplay.
Yes.
So I think he learned somewhat of, like, oh, this character, either, or whoever else helped him with the screenplay was like, you have to fix this. You have to fix this. So, and
I like that Tim ends up like our OG little dinosaur kid.
Yeah.
He's the one that knows all the things.
It makes more sense for a kid his age in the book, and I think that he's like 11, 12 years old, I think, in the book. So it makes more sense for like an 8, 9, 10-year-old to be a little bit more like kind of precocious the way that he is.
Yes.
It makes a lot more sense.
Because they still kept like the divorce, their parents getting divorced and all that in it, which I think is an important plot point, because it means the kids are already in turmoil and they're just being sent off so the parents can get that figured out, essentially. And because it's really sad. Like, it's completely safe. I'm going to invite my own grandchildren.
That is just such hubris of, like, I'll show you how safe it is. We're going to bring my grandchildren. Like, are you kidding?
Oh, I have so many fun things to tell you, though.
So, but yes, there are some I would say the plot wise, obviously with more changes between the movie and the book, obviously you lose a lot of like the chase with from the T-Rex.
Oh, I have a list. I just realized. I forgot in my notes.
Of differences?
I have a list of differences.
There you go.
That's why I wrote in book versus movie. I have a whole list of I have a lot of facts and notes.
That's what we want here.
About this. I found out Jurassic Park had their own wiki.
Yeah.
And I spent so much time on there.
There you go. So
I'm okay with this.
So you want to give us some more differences? I was in the T-Rex thing, but
Oh yeah.
Give us some differences.
Okay, so the beginning sequence of the book, the Bowman family, that entire scene, they actually didn't put that in the first movie, but they did put it in the second movie, The Lost World, where you more so follow Ian Malcolm. So that scene was actually just changed into a next movie. They did the same thing with the pterodactyls as well.
Okay.
The velociraptors do not escape before the power break in the movie.
Yeah.
The sick Stegosaurus is ultimately replaced with a sick Triceratops.
Yes.
But its name is ultimately shown when Dennis was stealing the embryos for Biosyn. But it was misspelled because they misspelled so many things.
Yep.
When it came to dinosaurs. So Ed Regis does not appear in the movie.
They just combine him and Gennaro into the same person.
They do. And so, but that's the guy that, like, Ed Regis dying wasn't really, it was just, like I said, my 7-year-old at the time giggled when she saw that. So that's about as important as that feels.
Yeah.
Henry Wu does not have a larger part in the book. He actually survives and leaves for the boat. His role is much bigger in later movies, of course, because when you get to the second trilogy, Wu's at it again. He's making more dinosaurs.
Yeah, so it works to their benefit to not have him be killed off in the first movie.
The aviary is completely absent, and we don't get that until Jurassic Park 3. That's one of the ones where these idiots, they decide to go parasailing, or whatever it's called, near... It's not Isla Nublar. It's a different island that I thought I wrote it down. Hang gliding. That's maybe they're on the they're up in the air, but they're being pulled by a boat.
Oh no, that's parasailing. Never mind.
Parasailing. That is parasailing. I can't remember the name of the island, but it's a different island. And what they did is in the second movie, they're like, oh wait, we had a tester island before Isla Nublar, but we didn't tell anybody about it. So there's a whole nother island that has dinosaurs that are roaming free. And when you get there you don't find that out until, of course, the third movie.
Mm-hmm.
But no, you find it out in the second because Hammond tells Ian Malcolm about it.
Okay.
And that's where they end up going. They go to that island because that's where his girlfriend is, and they have to try and save the baby T-Rex. So there's a whole other island full of dinosaurs.
Okay.
Which is pretty much the premise of the second and third movie. And because on the third one, they go parasailing and something happens to the guys on the boat, so then they're stranded on the island with the dinosaurs. And the parents of the kid that was with them pretty much convinces Sam Neill, his character, Alan Grant, and some other people to go, and he thinks, Sam Neill's character thinks they're just flying over the island to look down and see dinosaurs. Mm-hmm. When in reality, they're actually on a rescue mission, and he's like, fuck all of you for bringing me here. What the fuck? I've already lived this once. It's crazy.
The more you tell me about these sequels, like the book and the book and the movies, the more evident it is that this was Michael Crichton's first ever foray into sequels. I think Lost World is the first ever sequel.
He didn't want to write it.
He didn't want to write it. He's never written sequels before because it's all but wait, this other thing actually happened. But it clearly wasn't planned. It clearly wasn't planned. Yeah. That's the issue with so many authors plan series. They plan sequels. Mm-hmm.
He planned for this to be a standalone.
He kind of was just forced to because of the popularity, which is understandable, but it's blatantly obvious that this is all there is this secret other island that no one's ever mentioned before.
It's so obvious that it was a throwaway of he was like, you're making me do this, so it's going to suck.
Yeah.
Because while I love following more Ian Malcolm, the second movie is so bad. It is so horrible.
I've never seen it.
It's a fun little watch, but it's such a bad movie. The best part is that you get to watch Jeff Goldblum on screen most of the time. That's the best part of the whole movie.
That's fair.
Then you get to the third one. I like the third one. I find it interesting, but then again, I also like Sam Neill. So I'm doing okay. It's then when you get into the next trilogy that I'm like, I don't like Chris Pratt, but Bryce Dallas Howard. I can...
Yeah. That's fair.
That's fair, right?
That's fair.
So the exploration of the raptor nest, of course, never happens in the movie. Mm-hmm. Neither the island was not bombed, obviously, but that led them being able to make another trilogy after that. And probably your most disliked part of the movie, Hammond survives.
Yeah, that was one of the our other patron. Regal, I haven't gotten confirmation whether she wants her real name used or not, so we're going to use Regal for right now. She asked which death within the book was most satisfying and which was most tragic. Hammond's death in the book, in my opinion, was very satisfying, and I was kind of annoyed.
Extremely satisfying.
And kind of annoyed that it didn't happen in the movie, where he's allowed to see the error of his ways and leave the island, where we still lost Samuel L. Jackson.
He doesn't see the error of his ways, though, because he's the one that convinced Ian Malcolm to go back to the other island. In the second movie, Hammond is the one to convince Ian to go back into Dinosaur Land.
And but we still lose Samuel L. Jackson.
Yeah, how can
we still lose Arnold?
The casting, but the casting was so good.
He was perfect.
Is the perfect Arnold. And honestly, I can't remember the guy's name, and I feel horrible, but the guy who plays Nedry does an amazing job.
That's another actor. I've seen him a million times, but I could not tell you his name.
What is his name? Hold on. I will.
I can tell you. I can tell you BD Wong plays Dr. Wu, which also is perfect.
Oh God! And because he continues. Of course, all these people continue their roles because in the newer movies, in the Dominion, Alan, everybody comes back together again.
And fun fact, if you didn't know, BD Wong is also the voice of Shang from Mulan. He doesn't do the singing, but he does the speaking.
Wayne Knight.
Wayne Knight, thank you.
That's his name.
That's who plays
That was driving me crazy. That's Nedry. His death is satisfying in both.
Yeah.
But I love the book death so much.
Because he doomed them all.
I'm still mad about Arnold, though. Arnold didn't have to go. I don't have a ton of like fun facts. It's just things that I find interesting within when it comes to movies. I like knowing how well a movie did.
No, that's fair.
Or different things like that. Because we both talked about how he kind of co-wrote this. Like he was kind of working. He worked on the book for a very long time. Crichton worked on this book well over a decade, trying to get everything right. But when you look at it, you can tell it's had a lot of work into it because the data, the chaos theory, the thought that goes behind so much within Jurassic Park is absolutely insane. But it reached the point that he was also then started writing the script before, like the movie was going to be made before this book was ever going to be published because it's just how it worked out. Crichton was hired to write the script that skipped down its plot. Spielberg hired Stan Winston Studios puppets for the dinosaurs. And they also worked with Industrial Light and Magic to develop the CGI to portray the dinosaurs. This is where we actually get to start seeing more CGI. The film inspired a whole new breed of films that primarily used CGI. Like this is like our first big CGI movie, I feel, that did really well. It was you could definitely tell it was like 90s CGI, but I feel like it held up. It definitely held up.
Like for the era, like it struck a good balance of when to use animatronics versus CGI. And I think that's important because I feel like if you're gonna use both, you have to know when it's important to use one versus the other. Because with the so many will opt to just do we already have animatronics, we have puppetry, we'll just do all puppetry, but it would look odd to have the scale of a giant.
It's hard to do
puppet. You can't do that.
Like having I'm just gonna say long necks because that's another thing they changed in the movie. It's one type of dinosaur, but in the book, it's a different type of dinosaur.
Sauropods.
I want to say sauropods, but in the movie, it's Brachiosaurus.
That's I think I want to say
they changed it.
I want to say. Oh, I'm not a paleontologist. Someone else can correct me in.
I'm not either.
Thing. I want to say sauropod is the broader term for that type of dinosaur, where Brachiosaurus was the specific long necks. But since they're the only ones that are there, they kind of use the term interchangeably in the book. Like sauropod is like that type of dinosaur, but a Brachiosaurus is like that specific species of that type of dinosaur.
There's so many dinosaurs.
I was not one of the queer kids that wanted to be a paleontologist when I was younger, so I couldn't tell you if I'm saying anything correctly. My girlfriend was, so I don't know if she wanted to be a paleontologist, but she knows a lot more about dinosaurs than I do.
I wanted to be a forensic anthropologist. I watched too much Bones as a child. So different type of bone?
That's fair.
So the film grossed $914 million in its initial release.
Nice.
Which is a lot for the 90s. Like, that's so much for the 90s. Like, oh my God. This was the first film ever to gross $900 million. This was the first one too.
I would believe that.
It was the highest grossing film of all time. It surpassed E.T.
Okay.
It stayed at that level until Titanic came out.
That's about right.
Yeah, Titanic definitely went over that one. Because the Titanic was the first one to gross $1 billion. After being re-released in 2013, it grossed $1.029 billion. It is currently the 44th most highest grossing film of all time. And it reached near universal acclaim.
Okay.
Near universal. And all I can think is like so much has come from this. How can we still say near?
Yeah, right? Well, because it's like, I kind of think of like, it's reached cultural saturation. Like, that's like...
Yes.
That's like what, like, people, you say Jurassic Park, even if they've never read the book or seen the movie, they likely have an image of what you're talking about.
Exactly. Dinosaurs. They know you're talking about something, the movie with dinosaurs.
Yep. Absolutely.
I wrote down all the different movies that we've had in their years. So, like, we had this in, I want to say... what year?
This one came out in 91.
91. Lost World didn't come out because it's the Lost World Jurassic Park is actually what it's called. That didn't come out till May 23rd, 97. The third one, Jurassic Park 3, came out July 18th, 2001. So it definitely had its gaps. Shorter gap between 2 and 3, but that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then we had Jurassic World come out. That was June 12th, 2015. Then the next one, Fallen Kingdom, was June 22nd, 2018. And then we had Dominion come out June 10th of 2022. They have definitely kept this as a summer movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
Every single time.
This is definitely a summer blockbuster.
My last note that I have to give you is kind of a funny one.
Okay.
Did you know there's going to be a Jurassic Park 7?
Why?
It gets better than that.
What's left? How many times do we have to have them? Like, this is the thing. I do appreciate, like, you want things to keep going. But, like, how many times do they need to make a movie of maybe dinosaurs in the modern world is a bad idea?
It gets better.
Oh.
So it's set to... Currently, the film will be released by July 2nd, 2025.
Okay.
So only a year or so from now.
Almost exactly a year from when this comes out.
At the time, which was only a couple of weeks ago, so like I said, today is May 13th when we were recording this. The person that they seem to have got on for cast, like their main cast person that is rumored right now, can you guess who that is? You can ask for hints.
Can I have a hint?
So it is a female actress. It is not an actor.
Okay. It doesn't narrow it down.
Ooh, okay. They have worked on superhero movies.
Gal Gadot?
No.
Okay. So Marvel or DC?
Marvel.
Now I want to get it right, but like, can I have one more hint?
She's married?
That doesn't help me.
I know, I'm sorry.
At this point, my guess is going to be Scarlett Johansson.
It's fucking Scarlett Johansson.
Oh my god, okay.
Yes. Scarlett, as of right now, Scarlett Johansson is the actress, as of when last I checked, which I find interesting.
Yeah, that's an interesting choice.
She plays any and everybody, so...
Yeah. Sure, she can be a paleontologist. That's fine.
She ran out of Marvel money. Now we're gonna. She probably hasn't. It's just a joke. It's just a freaking joke. She's ran out of Marvel money. She's gonna go get her Jurassic Park money now.
Pretty much, just one big franchise, one after the other. For the most part,
one after the other. But yes, they've decided to make a Jurassic Park 7. So while we just talked about how much we love this book, the movie is really good. Some of the movies are also pretty good. They're gonna keep this ball rolling.
Oh yeah.
Because the cartoons are fine. Like, it's cartoons on Netflix, Camp Cretaceous, and like I said, Chaos Theory. They're cute. They're fun. They're scary. Because that goes into the whole thing of, I believe kids should also have, like, their own horror stuff, too, that's good for their age. The Jurassic Park stuff definitely fits in with that.
Yeah, I would say maybe our generation had, like, Are You Afraid of the Dark and stuff like that. That might have been a little too much, I would say, maybe for...
I mean, we're all traumatized anyways.
But, like, when you say that, like, you said your daughter saw Jurassic Park, she was 7 the first time?
About 7, yeah.
So, like, your daughter and me are two very different people.
Yeah, big time.
We've established, I think I've said this on an episode of one of the other things, my other podcasts before. I was about your daughter's age when I watched the very first Pirates of the Caribbean movie, Curse of the Black Pearl.
Oh, that one's spooky.
And that, I wasn't scared of anything at first. I was like, I'll watch all the scary things. I didn't care. That terrified me, and from then on, I could not watch scary movies until I was much, much older.
So, around this age, like, that she's around 10. She just turned 10. The thing that, like, my parents let me watch that they shouldn't have was Signs, and I'm still terrified of that movie to this day. But as I've said before on our lovely podcast, is that I also watched Seven at like 8 years old. But that didn't scare me. But then I'm also sitting here like, let's make Lauren read a horror book. So, I mean, obviously, my daughter's just like me. Damn.
But like, again, I'm an adult now. I have an easy, because when you're a kid, it's a lot harder, obviously, to separate like the fiction from the reality, because that's just how our brains work when we're little.
Oh, yeah.
Like, as an adult
now,
there's
no prefrontal cortex.
There's no prefrontal cortex formation. Like, I now know dinosaurs are not out to get me. I'll be fine, as far as I'm aware.
We just got to really keep a close eye on the scientist.
Yeah, we do. So Regal did have one more question for us that we haven't already talked about. Well, actually, she has two more questions for us. One being, what characters were our favorites? I think yours is Ian Malcolm, I would assume.
I love Ian Malcolm so much. And it's not just because he's played by Jeff Goldblum. It is him in the book, too.
Yeah.
Because the entire time, he's even explaining himself. It may not completely make sense all the time of what he's saying, but he does get to a point eventually. He's very long-winded within the book. And he's an asshole at times, but he's not wrong. He is right the entire time, and no one listens. And so then you get to the second half of the book, and he's just sitting here like, fucking told you I was right, and no one listened, and look where we are. So I like Ian Malcolm.
Honestly, I think Arnold is my favorite. It's Samuel L. Jackson.
Choice.
He's because he's who I would be in the situation of like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. Like, why am I doing this? Why am I going down here? Why am I trying to figure out this computer system? He's just like, I'm so done with this the entire time. He's like, you used all of the fold lines for this? He's like, he's what I was saying the entire time. So, and he's Samuel L. Jackson.
And
so
he's Samuel L. Jackson in my mind in the book too.
Yeah.
He is Samuel L. Jackson. Arnold and Samuel L. Jackson are the same person in book and movie. Because, oh God.
It's just, He's like the relief we need of everyone else is like so into the dinosaurs and all stuff. And he's just like, what the fuck am I doing here?
It's like, I'm here. I'm tired. I've been up for too long. I've had copious amounts of caffeine. Leave me alone.
Exactly.
Let me do this, please. Like, he's all of us. He's millennials.
Exactly. He absolutely is. And Regal's last question for us was, which do you prefer, the book or the movie?
That's a hard one.
It is. This is not a case where I can say like it's clear cut. One is better than the other. I would say because I feel like they both serve a purpose.
For me, I'm one of those people. I don't like watching the media before I read the book. It is a toxic trait. I am aware of this. No, I'm not in therapy yet, but I'll get there. But I have to read it before I watch it. I cannot help it. And because of that, the amount of books I have that I still have not watched the movie, even if it's been out 10 years, because I have the book. I just haven't read it yet. So for me, this one, I had of course watched Jurassic Park because I didn't know it was a book. So I ended up reading Jurassic Park because I was mad at myself for not knowing it was a book in the first place, and ended up loving it too. But then I've got the nostalgia of having Jurassic Park as a child. And so I love both for what they are.
Yeah, I think I didn't know it was a book either until someone in my 12th grade English class, for some presentation-based project, we had to do like a presentation on a book, and they chose Jurassic Park, and I was like, I had no idea. I had no idea it was a book. I couldn't tell you what I did. Oh, you know what? I can tell you what I did. I did a collection of Hans Christian Andersen fairy tales, which is very me. That's so me.
Extremely you. And my goodness.
I got the okay from my teacher because when I told her why I wanted to do it, she's like, "You can do it on the collection. You don't have to read you don't read the whole collection because it was a lot of stories." She's like,
"Yeah, those are a lot of stories."
She's like, "You have to at least touch on 5 different stories just to prove you read more than just The Little Mermaid." That's basically what she said.
Okay, just for funsies, what do you think mine would have been? No, because you know my taste in books.
Wait, what? So like for this project, because it was like a book talk kind of presentation,
book talk type thing presentation.
Oh, Aragon!
Damn it! You're not wrong.
I'm not wrong at all.
It was out by then too. That was the finished series. Not long after that.
Yeah, because that was 2013.
That was 2013. Damn, that I asked the question, yet I feel called out.
Yeah, honestly, for the book versus the movie, like I said, they serve different purposes. The book gives you a lot more context of like the real world implications. So you have the stakes of the dinosaurs are getting off the island. You have those real world stakes.
And velociraptors are scary.
And velociraptors are terrifying. And in the movie, you still have the aspect of the velociraptors may get off the island. You have no idea. But I think I can't say I prefer one over the other. No. It would be more a case of I would say for reread or rewatchability, they both have it. I would probably be more inclined to rewatch the movie more readily than I would to reread the book like within the same year. Because there's some books that I would say that I'll finish it and then start. I could start right back up again.
I mean, this took me 2 years to reread.
Yeah, this is one that I would reread it, not like immediately. So I would say for quick entertainment, obviously, I think most people for quick entertainment, I would pick the movie over the book. But I can't say
for
I prefer
quick entertainment. Yeah, it's like how much time do you want to spend on it?
Exactly, but I can't really say I would pick one over the other because they both offer different things.
I feel like your story would be different if the audiobook was more readily available for like everybody.
Oh, yeah.
Because this would be an amazing listen, but then I'd be concerned about the graphs and the data.
Well, that's why I say, so I can't say, like, listen to the audiobook and read at the same time because
there's visuals in this
There's
book.
visuals, like, you're going to miss the graphs and all of the data and the information. Like, when they read, like, the file paths that are the codes for the different enclosures. Mm-hmm. Like, it's hard to listen to just that it's hard to listen to that just by itself. Having the book certainly helps. So, like,
so much.
If this was more readily available through libraries, I would say listen and read at the same time, but it's unfortunately not for some reason. I'm in a case where I just bought I share an Audible mm-hmm. account with my mother. She had extra credits. I was like, hey, can I use one for Jurassic Park? And she said sure.
I love that. How was the narration?
It's really good. The narrator is Scott Brick. And he does a very good job with the different characters. Like he does the thing that you want out of a narration. He doesn't necessarily put on a character voice, but he differentiates the characters. You can tell who's talking without being distracted by character voice.
Yeah, because sometimes some narrators do like really high pitch for children or something, and especially when it's a male narrator, it completely takes me out of the story.
Yeah, I think like, he did a pretty good job of, I would say, of doing that, because I've definitely also done that. And like, there's one I love this narrator to death. She does a phenomenal job with everything. It's Natalie Naudis. She is my most listened to narrator. I've done the math. But she has this one voice that she uses for nearly every mom character, and I've just dubbed it her mom character voice. The characters always sound mildly worried.
That sounds right.
Like that's what I can say. But it's the mom character in every book she narrates, and it's really kind of funny.
Have I listened to anything by her?
I don't know.
I probably haven't.
I am the person that keeps track of the narrator when I read audiobooks, which is now nearly every book I read.
Reading with your ears is wonderful though, because I've been hybrid reading my recent book. So, but with books though, so I'm one of those people, like I said, I have to read the book before the movie. And with that, I'm also usually the person that prefers the book over the movie because I like information. I feel like Jurassic Park is one of those that I don't mind the adaptation. Mm-hmm. I don't. The adaptation is still good. It still holds up. And I'm not mad that there were changes made because it makes sense, the changes that were made. Mm-hmm. Which I will say, I do not say that about everything. There's like maybe 2 or 3 books that I feel that way. Because one day, far, far in the future, I will make you read Eragon only because I have an excuse. You won't have to watch the horrible movie that we all hate, except for Jess. Love you, Jess. But with that, they're making a new TV show for it. It's getting redeemed, just like Percy Jackson got its redemption from those movies that they made. Eragon's getting it too. No idea when it'll be out. They're still working on it.
Yeah.
But this time, the author, just like Crichton did, is getting to work with just actually on the script and on the movie himself. So I have high hopes.
Yeah.
So, but the audiobook is good.
That's good.
That's a good audiobook.
That's always important.
That's always important.
Because we are very much in the camp of audiobooks are reading. Doesn't matter. You are taking in the story no matter how you're doing it.
But we are big readers, so I'm glad that we decided to start this because we are huge readers. I mean, I record with my bookshelf behind me.
Yeah, you can't. My bookshelf is in front of me. You can't see, but my collection just kind of encompasses me.
That's okay. Sometimes you need a book nest, not a bookshelf.
That's what this has turned into. It's a great time.
It sounds really cozy.
It can get a little claustrophobic some days because I'm also like confronted with the fact of I have a lot of books and I do not have a lot of shelf space.
That's fair. I have extra shelf space. You can just send them my way.
There we go.
I say as you've already sent me a book.
I have. Yeah, so I did just send you a book.
I got it today.
You did get it today. So Katie, would you like to tell people what this book is?
I just got my first ever Katie Robert book. For backstory, I feel like people need to understand.
Say the title.
Neon Gods. I'm sorry. I have brain cells. I feel like everyone needs to understand what this it actually like means, though, because we're really excited it got picked. Because if you're in the Patreon, you know that we do a wheel.
Yes,
and we do a wheel of elimination.
Wheel of elimination to pick our next book, because Neon Gods is going to be the next book for the Pedantic Book Club.
And I'm very excited. But Lauren, I don't read a lot of spicy books.
No, you don't.
Spicy being... if everybody should know what spicy means, right?
Spicy means there is explicit content
on page.
On page. This is, I mean, why are we dancing around this? This is an explicit podcast. Why are we dancing around this? We're not on TikTok. Spicy means sex scenes.
Yes, sex scenes. I don't read a lot of those. I'm predominantly a fantasy reader, and I am realizing I'm not a huge fan of romantasy, and I skip sex scenes constantly. Unless it's a book Lauren has sent me. At this point in time, let me see. Can I count? Four.
So yeah, I didn't send you Delilah.
No, you're right. I bought Delilah. My bad. 4. So I call Lauren the Sapphic book fairy because I had not really read a lot of Sapphic romance books because I mainly read fantasy, and she started sending me them only to find out I like those.
Sapphic. Well, here's the thing, because you've told me before in other romantasy books and stuff that you've read that you've kind of skipped the sex scene. So I will say this: Neon Gods does not feature a sapphic relationship, but I would still consider the book queer, because this is what I say about Katie Roberts' books, and this is what they say about their own books. Every single character is queer until stated otherwise, whether they are in whether they're in a heterosexual facing relationship or not. Every single character is queer until proven otherwise, and I'm fairly certain in Neon Gods, which is a Hades and Persephone retelling, it's the first book of the Dark Olympus series, both Persephone and Hades on page say that they are bisexual.
See, and I think that's probably what's going to make me love this.
Yeah.
Is I'm okay. I've read some books that have straight relationships that I'm like, okay, this is actually pretty good, and I enjoyed it. It's only when I'm very much invested in the characters. I have to actually really enjoy the characters and be invested in their story to enjoy the explicit scenes. I feel like with it being, like you say, a queer book, especially with bisexual representation, I think I'm going to enjoy it for that fact. I
think so too. And this one, I would say for the,
it's going to get red. It's just going to get very red.
Yes, you are. But it's like, I've read quite a bit of Katie Robert. I in fact have a shelf almost entirely filled with their books, and I have 2 that are on the way because I am in their Patreon, and I do believe we get 2 books this month. Because 2 of them came. One of them is The Succubus's Prize. That's one of their fantasy, and the other one is the next one in their. It's another fantasy series. It's Blood on the Tide. It's the Sapphic. It's a vampire and a selkie.
Yeah.
That one's going to be interesting. But
I'm only laughing that my first one's not their dragon one. I'm sorry.
So here's the thing: is like what I think Neon Gods is a great place to start because it is a traditionally published book, so it has limitations on the spice. Katie Robert definitely tends to push the boundaries of those limitations. They basically are like, how far are you willing to let me go? But I would say Neon Gods, of the Katie Robert books that I've read, is probably one of the least spicy. I put it in like my low 3 for a spice scale. Like,
watch me open the book and it's like page 1.
It's not. But
you have sent me a book before that's very soon.
I have. Page 5. I've done it's on page 5.
Page 5.
For mistakes were made is page 5. But Desperate Measures, which is the first book in their Wicked Villain series, which is a completely different series that at some point I'll make you read, because they're just as delightful as Dark Olympus. That one is like page 2, page 3.
Wow.
Like, it starts really, really quickly. So I think Neon Gods is going to be a great place to start you because
you're converting me.
We're going to build up your tolerance.
Build up my
because I would say with Dark Olympus they progressively get spicier.
Okay.
I'm
an adult. I can do this.
I would say they get spicier. There's a little bit of a dip in book 4, which personally isn't my favorite. But then after book 4 you get book 5, which is the open polyknot.
Open too?
It's open, so it's 4 people, but they're not all interconnected. You have the sapphic pairing where one woman is just with the other woman, and then that woman is also kind of in a triad, and then the 2 men also do things, and it's
okay. If I read that, I need a diagram.
I believe there is one.
My God.
Katie Robert makes
I love this.
On their Instagram, like every couple of months they'll repost the Dark Olympus connections map for all the characters.
Oh, this is actually cool. This is really cool.
So no, there is a diagram. I don't have to make one for you. There is one.
I get visuals.
That's book 5, though.
Not the kind I thought I'd get. Thank you all for listening. We hope you enjoyed the book club episode, and we hope you'll join us next quarter when we read Neon Gods by Katie Robert. Don't forget to like, rate, and follow the podcast wherever you listen so you can be notified every time we publish a new episode. Follow us at OBDYK_pod on Instagram and TikTok. And if you'd like to join our book club, you can find the link with more details in our show notes.
This has been an episode of Okay, But Did You Know? A TV and media podcast. It was hosted by Lauren and Katie and edited by Lauren.